Good morning and welcome to the Daily Space for today, July 22nd, 2019. If I seem to be in a different camera than normal, that's because my normal camera decided today is the day it is going to stop doing anything. So I am here on a different camera because the show must go on. Now, today is the most Monday of Mondays, and we have a somewhat, I'm going to go with Monday show prepared for you. Just when I thought we were safe from the Apollo 50th anniversary celebration, I discovered there's a new NASA branding campaign that links a non-existent manned Mars exploration program with the Apollo landing. I'm not sure why I find this so annoying. Actually, no. I know exactly why I find this so annoying. Programs like this take thousands of dollars to put together because you have to pay the person to do all the graphics, and then the graphics have to get approved by layer upon layer and committee upon committee. And when I see things like this, well, first of all, the camera angle's wrong. The perspective is wrong. You can't do this. There's like no way to take this photo. And second of all, this graphic, it's going to end up being just one more piece of promotional material that is used to get people super inspired about a project that isn't going to become reality. And we regularly see, if you read the space Twitter folks, people talking about, oh, NASA has just announced blah, but we know that's not going to happen. That kind of cynicism directed at space, that's not good for anyone. And I would just rather see all of this funding go into inspiring people by actually doing the science, by actually doing the missions, instead of promoting dreams that probably are never going to be reality. Okay, that was bleak. It's Monday morning. Let's maybe switch topics to something not quite so bleak. Unfortunately, the 50th anniversary of the Apollo mission is affecting everything. And there is not an institute out there that hasn't asked, how can we promote ourselves by jumping on the Apollo 50th anniversary bandwagon? And this particular example, it may be one of the oddest press releases I've received. The Australian National University would like to announce that Lunar Rocks can be used to debunk moon landings. And they'd like to do this with a graphic of some man holding something that may or may not contain a moon rock and is definitely very confusing. So I'd like to start by saying we went to the moon. Period. Done. Humans have been there. We walked there. We left trails, and spacecraft from nations that would love to prove that the United States never went to the moon. Those spacecrafts have imaged the future archaeological sites that are the various Apollo landers. We've been there. There's other evidence too, but I'm just going to stop with that one because that's my personal favorite. Now, what does not actually debunk the moon landings is moon rocks. First of all, the Russians brought back a whole lot of rocks using robotic probes. 3 different Luna missions went to the moon, got rocks, and brought them back. Now, admittedly, the first of those missions wasn't until September of 1970. So those missions were after the Apollo missions, But the second thing is, making artificial moon rocks is kind of a sport. It's something that astronomers and planetary scientists, okay, to be fair, planetary scientists and geologists do, because there's so many lab experiments that we'd like to do exploring the potential of lunar dust, the problems of lunar dust, and that means we need to make artificial moon rock. And also Earth just has weird rocks. And so, yeah, and Earth also has moon rocks because they rain down from space onto the Earth in the form of meteorites. I don't get this press release. Please, people, stop trying to self-promote your programs by finding Apollo anniversary tie-ins, okay? Just stop. Thank you. On to better things. Exploration of the moon didn't stop 50 years ago. It's still going on. And while humans haven't been on the moon since before I was born, robots have. And as I've said before, I, for one, welcome our robot overlords. And the newest of these robotic missions launched early this morning. Unfortunately, I didn't catch the launch time on time to know I needed to get up early, or more to the point, on time to learn I needed to go to bed early so I could get up early to cover the launch. So we didn't cover it here on CosmoQuest, but I can bring you some launch video now. Here is mission coverage, and this is India's second lunar mission, and it includes an orbiter, a lander called Vikram, a rover called Pragyan, and Annie's probably going to tell you a whole lot more about this on Wednesday, but for now I'd like to say we're still exploring the moon. There's still really cool science to be done. And if this mission is successful in making a soft landing at the moon's south pole, it's going to make India the fourth nation to successfully land on the moon. And it's going to make it the first nation to explore one of the lunar poles. So this is the kind of moon stuff that we need to be excited about. It's science. It's being done right now. And this is the thing that we can get involved in dreaming over. Okay, we are done with the moon. We are now going to move into some out of this solar system science. Planetary scientists working at the University of Colorado and at Arizona State University have teamed up to try and calculate out the magnetic fields of hot Jupiters. Now, calculate out may make you think this is purely theoretical research, but it's not. They've actually been looking at the faint traces of magnetic field interactions between host stars and the hot Jupiters that are orbiting them. These hot Jupiters are orbiting so close they're actually within their star's magnetic field. Now I'm going to read a quote to you from the lead of this project. This is Wilson Calley. He reports, "We combined measurements of increased stellar emission from the magnetic star-planet interactions, and together with physics theory, calculated the magnetic field strengths for 4 hot Jupiters." This team is finding that hot Jupiters have magnetic fields that are anywhere from 5 to 30 times stronger than the magnetic fields that Jupiter has. This means that these worlds, well, they have auroras like we can't even imagine. They have corona and interactions between the sun and the planet, again, like nothing we can imagine. This is a system that reminds me in many ways of Jupiter and Io's interactions, where you have this torus of material driven by the magnetic field interactions. And while it's beyond what we can currently explore, it makes me wonder just what will we find when we start finding hot super Earths that are filling that role that Io fills with Jupiter. Now, these hot Jupiters don't have magnetic fields that work in the same ways that, well, we're used to. In general, when we look at a world, we expect it to have a magnetic field that can be predicted through a combination of looking at how is the planet rotating and how long has it been around and cooling off from its original formation. So we look at Mars, and sure, it has a day-night cycle that's only about 45 minutes different from our own planet Earth's. But it's smaller and it's cooled off a lot more, so it doesn't have a magnetic field like Earth does. But it had one in the past, probably. And our own Earth will eventually lose its magnetic field. So there's this direct correlation between how long a planet's been around and how strong its magnetic field is that is made more complicated by how fast is the world rotating. Well, these hot Jupiters, with their magnificent magnetic fields, they are actually getting heated up constantly by being just 5 stellar diameters or 20 times the Earth-Moon distance away from their host stars. And this heating is part of what allows them to have such magnificently strong magnetic fields. So this is some cool science. In other news, science would like to remind you that we exist at the edge of a void. Unlike many voids in life, this one isn't one that needs to cause you any existential crisis. It's instead one that will simply cause weird corrections that need to be made in our measurements of the expansion of the universe. As we look around at our nearby corner of the universe, we see in some directions massive clusters of galaxies that are pulling everything into them. The Great Attractor, for instance, is attracting the Virgo cluster, the Coma cluster. Virgo itself is attracting our own Milky Way and the local group of galaxies that we're part of. Now, just as these vast collections of mass are pulling things into them, there are also voids in our universe. One of them right next to our own Milky Way galaxy. And these voids, well, they're not pushing us away, but they aren't balancing out all of that attractive matter, which means that they're expanding over time as the material at their edges gets drawn by that excess mass that exists in other places. Well, it gets drawn to those other places. In a new study, Brent Tully, who's of the original Tully-Fisher relationship on how, well, things are moving through space, he and his team have mapped out 18,000 galaxies on the edge of this void and used those measurements to, well, study just how empty the void is and how it's expanding over time. This kind of indirect assessment is unfortunately necessary because this local void is located on the other side of the center of our galaxy, where it's really impossible to study directly. So he found ways to observe it in other ways. This study, when combined with a 2014 paper that looked at how galaxies are flowing towards the Great Attractor, these two different studies, one of, well, things flowing towards the mass and the other of, well, galaxies flowing away from the emptiness, they allow us to figure out that we can account for 300 kilometers per second of our local group's motion just by looking at how the void is expanding and how we're getting drawn towards the Great Attractor. Now, unfortunately, this doesn't fully account for our motion relative to all the other stuff in the universe around us, but it's a start. And this is a really cool piece of research. And I have to admit that I had a moment of, do I want to cover this research this morning? Because this is research that's coming out of the Institute for Astrophysics at the University of Hawaii. And I'm someone that really believes that we need to stop saying, oh, but the science, and need to call a spade and call out those individuals and institutions that are putting down others through their actions, their harassment, and just everyday cruelty. In the University of Hawaii, well, this morning I turned on NPR to hear about the protests, and I flipped open Twitter to see how the ACLU is reminding people of how to get in contact with them, because the local authorities have brought a crowd dispersal weapon that employs sound in focused beams against humans. And they've brought it out to use against the indigenous peoples that are protesting the construction of the 30-meter telescope. Now, as I've talked about before, the 30-meter telescope is a facility that multiple places in the world competed to be awarded the construction of. There are other sites out there that were desperate to get this telescope. Places that might not be quite as ideal, but can still get the job done, can still do the science if the telescope is built there. And this facility, the locals don't want the telescope. As I brought up before, Mauna Kea is leased from the Hawaiian Department of Natural Resources. It's like a $1 a year lease. The lease is administered by the University of Hawaii that has over and over and over broken its promises to the indigenous people. This story just pisses me off on every possible level. There's no good coming of this. If you're a scientist looking at this saying, but oh, the science. Well, the legal actions, the delays in construction, all of that is increasing the bill that is going to have to be paid. And the funds that are going into paying for those delays and those legal cases are funds not going into doing the science. There are other places that want the telescope. And what the 30-meter telescope is right now showing the world is astronomy doesn't care about humans. And we put telescopes in front of people. And that shouldn't be the case. And if I was a kid trying to figure out what I want to do with my life, reading this story, I might decide I don't want to be a scientist, because science means being cruel to indigenous peoples. So at this point, I don't think they're going to move the telescope to any one of the alternate sites. All this work makes folks not want to be scientists. That's all. I'm done. On many levels, I am done with this story. So now I will take your questions. And while you type those in, I'm going to remind you, first of all, to @CosmoQuestX. And I'm going to remind you that this is a production of the Planetary Science Institute. We are a 501c3 dedicated to exploration of our solar system and beyond. We are supported by you. Your subscriptions give us faith that we can keep going from this month into the next. If you are one of our patrons over on patreon.com/CosmoQuestX, you are allowing us to pay our bills month to month. Covering science like this, unfortunately, isn't free. And we are so grateful for all the support you've given us that lets us do this. So thank you for all that you can do. And if you can't monetarily support us, that's okay. There are lots of other ways that you can keep the science coming. And one of those ways is to actually help us in doing the science. I'm going to ask for another extension today. I'm in fact going to beg for another extension. We are currently working on mapping out the asteroid Bennu. And when we planned this project, we figured it would take us about 3 minutes per image to get through all of our data. And it's actually taking us 30 to 45 minutes per image. So we're running behind schedule. Science doesn't know how long it's going to take to do things. Now, these kinds of delays don't actually increase the costs because this mapping is being done by you. Your time, you're making the science happen. So if you don't have money, please consider giving time. If you don't have time and you do have money, please consider giving money. If you have neither, I'm so sorry. Thank you for spending the time listening. And if you have both, I'm just going to hang that sentence right there. Anyways, thank you, all of you, for being out there. Okay, I'm going to scroll back through the questions, and I'm loving seeing everyone use the emotes today. All the emotes. They are awesome. Okay, scrolling back. I see you mocking. I see that bits just came in. Thank you, because I had to switch screens because of the camera. I can't see more than there's bits. Hold on, scrolling down. Thank you, Trekker Kev. And I'm going to thank everyone else as I go back through. So this camera is not Skycam. Skycam is actually pointed at the doggos right now, none of whom particularly want to be on camera, it appears. There's a doggo. Hello, doggo. That's Malachi. He's a foster doggo. So Skycam is actually behaving. It's conference cam. Conference cam bit the dust. So we're using FaceTime cam. Okay. DPI 209. I think Skycam probably agrees with you. Yes, puppies. Or at least puppy currently. Scrolling, looking for questions. Hello, Eric. If you say hi and I spot it, I will probably wave at you. Hello, Guido. Thank you so much for 15 months of using your Twitch Prime subscription to support us. Thank you. And we need to know what you're having for dinner. Thank you. Yeah, I love all of you who are grouchy with me. Sorry, keeper of maps, to harsh your buzz. It's a Monday morning. How do you have a buzz? But thank you for the 100 bits. Thank you. So Eric is like, looks like a stock photo to me, referring to the NASA graphic I had up earlier. No, I don't think this is someone very carefully photoshopped a bunch of stuff. Yeah, not a thing, not a thing. Looking to see what other questions. Thank you, Wayne Johnson, for the bits. Thank you so much. So Astro B London asks, which is the strongest force, gravity or dark energy? By what proportion do they differ? So the side that the mic may or may not have picked up was I don't know if we can really call dark energy a force. Gravity of the normal forces is the strongest force. In terms of how it affects the dynamics of the universe. Now, the strong force is actually the strongest force, but it only works on atomic distances. So gravity, which is generally the weakest force, because it only works in one direction, it doesn't cancel out over great distances. It just adds up. Things that pull keep pulling. So this one force that is the weakest of all of the forces adds up to have the strongest effect, which doesn't mean it's the strongest force in a number-wise. It means it's the strongest force when you start looking at what impacts the universe. Short term, you have electrical forces, but those add up to zero over great distances because there's so many of them and they have plus or minus signs. Strong force only acts in atomic distances. Weak force, kind of the same. Dark energy appears to be a volume limited kind of thing where roughly but not exactly every cubic meter of space has 1 proton worth of energy in it, and as the universe gets bigger, we end up with more of this energy. And so sure, 1 proton of energy per cubic meter adds up a lot, but I don't know how to say if that's stronger or weaker than gravity. I don't want to say apples and oranges, but I don't know how to compare these two things. So I'm going to stop babbling and say observational astronomer, and you hit like fail point and my brain is threatening to core dump. So I'm going to move on to the next question because I don't even know how to like approach that. Veronica Cure is asking any updates on Bennu mapping. We still need more help. The next thing I'm going to do after I get off of this stream is 1, go make lunch. 2, I'm going to go through the database and see how many images have no marks and drop the threshold on the images, I think, so that we can get at least some maps of all of the images faster, but I need to look and see how things stand. Ask me tomorrow. Okay. Thank you, R. Instro, for subbing for 3 months. Especially thank you on a grouchy day when you're subbing when I have a grouchy day. So Journey Started says, have they determined the percentage of indigenous people complaining about the telescope? So there was a poll that came out over the weekend where they polled registered voters who intend to vote and asked them if they are Hawaiian locals, and being local or Hawaii natives born on the island of Hawaii. And there's a difference between being an indigenous Hawaiian person of Polynesian descent and being a white person who's native to Hawaii. And so that poll had a lot of problems. Surveys done of strictly the indigenous Polynesian descent people show that the majority of them, not 0.01%, not 0.1%, but the majority of the indigenous people do not want the telescopes on the island. And it's not that they don't want the opportunity to explore the universe. It's that they want people to stop breaking their promises and start treating them with respect. It's the broken promises that are the problem. There's several Twitter threads on this. I've shared several of them out on my personal account at Starstrider. It boils down to there's a lease agreement that spells out things that are supposed to happen. And the scientists keep finding excuses for those things not to happen. One of the greatest problems that I've heard indigenous peoples that I've talked to bring up over and over is they promised when they built these telescopes originally, the original lease was put together in 1968, they said that they would put resources into local education. Well, it turns out they built schools where the white people live, and those schools are getting great science education. Not so much for the locals. There hasn't been one indigenous person to graduate from the University of Hawaii with a PhD in astronomy. And there's lots of indigenous people who are scientists. It's proportional to what we see with other populations. Yeah. Sometimes it's not about the science. Sometimes it's about not trusting people to do what they say they're going to do. Oh, you can't see the doggos. Okay, I must have forgot to transition. There are no longer any doggos, though. Arinstro, I love your combination of emoticons where you did the original with the satellite orbiting. That is awesome. Yeah, there are currently thousands of people protesting Journey Started. Yeah, it's an issue. So looking to see what else is going on. Armstrong, that one's also very cool. Okay. So I'm not seeing any more questions, but I see that Guido is having vegetable soup with all the things in it. I'm sorry that my grouchiness got you off track. It's a Monday. I think I'm going to make a black bean salsa and have that and corn chips for a very unhealthy lunch. But sometimes you need to do that. So, yeah, best wishes to you, Planetary Pan. Thank you, Astro YYZ, for the bits. Thank you. Thank you so much. I have a doggo again. I can share a doggo who is a rescue doggo. So he is especially cute. Hey, Malachi. Malachi. Good boy. Good boy. I don't know if you could see the smile. Hi. You don't know how to jump up here yet. Can you jump up here? Come here. Come on up. Malachi's like, no, I don't know how to do that. Come here, Malachi. Will you let me pick up your front paws? Picking up a front paw. Trying to pick up a front paw. Here we go. Okay, most pathetic doggo ever. This is Malachi, not Eddie. The face has 2 black parts, and he has 1 brown eye and 1 blue eye. So he matches the other 2 because Stella has 2 blue eyes and Eddie has 2 brown eyes. Okay, anyways, foster doggo. Okay, so I am gonna go make lunch, and then I'm going to dig into the database for Bennu mappers. And if you are on the Discord, there's an Eddie. Come up here, Eddie. Come on. I know you're gonna push him out of the way, aren't you? Come on up. Good boy. So here's Eddie. Here's Eddie. So I am gonna go do the things, but before I go do the things, I am going to see who is good to stream. Let's see. Any recommendations on who I should raid? Anyone? If you don't have any recommendations, the place I always go to look is the Knowledge Fellowship, because they're a pretty good conglomeration. So Timber Anew is doing woodworking, and Adam is doing programming. I'm going to go with Timber Anew because it is less, not less, it is more animal-filled happiness. Timber raid. Let's see if I got that right. Yep. Oh, Paranor is streaming. I will go raid Paranor. So Mike Cassidy found like the perfect clean, gorgeous area that is profoundly awesome. So we normally keep things to science, but we also like to support and surprise our own community members. And Paranor is one of our is one of our community members. And so we are going to, if he's still there, I clicked the wrong thing. We are going to go. Why does it keep clicking away? Paranor. That one. There we go. We're going to go raid Paranor and support our community members. So wherever you are in the world, have a fabulous morning, evening, or afternoon. And if the weather is not too god awful where you are, so not monsooning, just not evil. Weather lately has been evil. Go outside and look up, and the credits are refusing to roll. So I'm just going to say out loud, so many thanks to all of my mods. You are the best mods ever. Oh, now maybe it will work. You are the best mods ever, and I think I figured out how to make this work. So before I read things out loud, I'm going to try one more time to get the end credits to roll. Nope, the end credits are just going to nope me. Okay, so I'm going to say out loud all of the thanks. Thank you to Astro YYZ for the 200 bits. Thank you to Trekker Kev for the bits. Thank you to R Instro for 3 months of tier 1 subscribing. Thank you to Wayne Johnson for the bits. Thank you to Keeper of Matt for the bits. Thank you to Guido B for being a Twitch Prime subscriber for 15 months. Thank you to Astro YYZ for 10 months. Thank you.